It is game week, people. Look alive. 8:31 is almost here, and the Huskers have a challenging task ahead of them if they want to get to Colorado 1-0. The Huskers lost last season to the Gophers by 7 points, but a lot of factors are different this time around. The Huskers had to start Chubba Purdy due to a Casey Thompson injury, which resulted in absolutely no passing production. They did get off to a nice 10-0 start going into the third quarter. Hit that like button for us and tell us in the comments, who do you think is going to win week 1? Gary Chubba and Anthony Grant had some really nice runs, but we just could not move the ball through the air to save our lives. We're going to probably run a lot more than last year, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, I think that's the plan from everything you're hearing. And the new depth chart coming out, it kind of seems like there's going to be multiple tight ends at a time and a fullback spot and things like that. So Minnesota was at the top. I don't know if they were number 1 or not, but they were at the top in the conference last year for time of possession in games. I think it's going to be a big factor whether or not we can move the ball. It's one thing to say we're going to go run the ball a lot and shove the ball down people's throat. It's another thing to run into the back of your center and guard for 3 possessions and punt and have to change.
I'm not saying that we're going to run it down their throats. I just mean we're going to attempt to run it.
No, I'm saying like that seems to be that kind of the narrative is like we're just going to keep running the ball down people's throats. And it's like, yeah, that's great if you can, but we're returning most of the same offensive line and 2 of the 3, but essentially all 3 running backs coming back. So I don't know how much is going to change with the new system, how much better it's going to look, how much you'll be able to lean on that and do that. But if that can be a factor, you kind of take away from how often they can hold the ball. They don't have their number 1 rusher coming back, things like that. A lot of things factor in, but yeah, I think that's the number 1 thing is they're not going to kill you with explosive plays. They're going to kill you by owning the ball the whole time. So anything Nebraska can do to counter that or offset that is going to be massive.
The Gophers are returning some of that team. Ethan Kaliakmanis, I believe that's how you say his name. I apologize if I'm getting it wrong. Played a lot at quarterback, and I think he outplayed Tanner Morgan, in my opinion. He had a nice throw late that set up a score for them. He's back, but their badass running back, Ibrahim, is gone to the NFL. Unfortunately, it looks like they found another really good one in Sean Tyler. I showed you some tape of Tyler. What did you think?
Fast, for sure. Seems to have really good vision as well.
He's not weak.
Oh, he's strong. He's a short guy. He seemed like, I don't know his actual height. I'm just going off of, when he scored touchdowns and everybody's around him, but most running backs look short with their offensive linemen. But he's definitely quick. Like I said, his vision was one of the first things that stuck out to me. It seems like he runs a little high. So, I mean, you want to get nitpicky. I mean, you think we can get some hits on him. I don't know what he did or what he looked like as far as ball control, if he turned the ball over much or if he's pretty sure-handed, but sometimes that's an issue guys that run pretty upright like that will have. But, the way you look, watching a lot of his highlights and things like that, must not have to worry about it too much because he's pretty quick.
I'm happy that the strength is shaping up to be our defense because I wouldn't want to go up against him with a poor rush defense.
A lot of people are worried about this 3-3-5 going into the Big Ten with the way they run the ball. And I know a lot of that's more for the power run game, but I'm one of the few people that I'm actually looking forward to the 3-3-5, especially with the added safety. And I think a guy like him, that's one of your better things you can do is have some more speed guys, some backs and quicker linebackers and things like that on the edges and in the back end to help kind of try to counter that speed. A lot of what we saw, it was a mixture, he'd go up the middle and break it deep. If you've got help over the top, you kind of counterbalance that a little bit, but especially some of the ones we saw when he's bouncing outside, it'd be nice to have an extra DB or 2 on the field to kind of help mitigate that.
Of course, everything is going to come down to, as far as if we can win the game, what? Our offensive line. That's it. If this line that, like you said, is returning everyone, except they're older, presumably stronger, if they can't get it done at the line of scrimmage, I mean, this is just the most obvious thing in the world, but we're not going to win many games. And I am not ready to believe that they can do it until I see it.
Yeah, I don't disagree, man. It's going to be a litmus test for sure for the offensive line. And the offensive line is obviously, but it's a very complicated position to play, especially when you're changing schemes a lot or systems, because it looks like it's just big body run-ins to big body and hope everything else works out. But there's a lot of communication. It's a true unit. If everybody isn't on the same page, it doesn't matter how good individually the guys are. So I'm hoping that his offense and defensive line oriented as Rule is and as detail oriented as he is, that there was a lot of discussion and he did a lot of homework and digging, and nothing I've seen so far tells me that he wouldn't have with Raiola before he decided to keep him. They're on the same page, and I hope that they're really just going to play into a lot of these guys' strengths, not confuse them with a lot of things. Whatever you can do. I mean, I really believe that position by position, guys can look really good in one system with a certain coach or a certain team and look like garbage, or you wonder how they made a team in another setup. So I hope that that's the case. I hope that just the system change alone and maybe Raiola having a little bit more say-so and control than he did last year will help a lot. But yeah, man, if they look like they did the beginning, middle of last year, and even at times at the end, it's going to be a long season. No, I don't care how good Gabe Irvin's looking. I know a lot of people, I'm super excited that Ramir looks to be the number 2 back. Everybody's excited for Jeff Sims. And you look at, compared to last year against their defense with no Casey Thompson, you would say Jeff Sims is a better overall quarterback than Purdy. Obviously, he's starting over him and Smothers both. So, I mean, you'd like to think that we have a better coach and a few better players at key spots. But again, man, if that offensive line can't hold up, it's not going to matter. I am glad that this is our first game as opposed to Colorado. I know we did a thing on Colorado and made a lot of friends in Colorado. But if we were to come out in the first game of the season against Colorado and the offensive line, just the offense in general looked good and we won, I would still not be fully sold just because they're so new and putting everything together. Does that make sense? But if you can come out and look decent or impressive even against Minnesota, who's always disciplined, always in control, not going to lose games, you're going to have to win it from them, returning a lot of guys. If you can look good against that, especially defensive front in the trenches, and look good there, I'll feel really good the rest of the way going through the season.
You know, you read my mind when you said at least we have a better quarterback this time around. We didn't almost win that game, but it was a heartbreaker. You're up 10 at halftime. You completely shut them out. Everything's going your way. And as a Husker fan, of course, I'm just sitting there waiting for the other shoe to drop. And it dropped. They go up 10 points. You finally kick that field goal. And I believe it was a 4th and 5. Smothers lays a nice pass on Trey Palmer, and uncharacteristically, he doesn't come down with it. I mean, that is a big first down conversion. Who knows what happens if he completes that? We were that close with in my opinion, godlike running back. Ibrahim, however you say it, the dude was cold, and we could not stop him. So this time around, I definitely think that, and this is unproven, but I do believe that Jeff Sims is going to be a better option than the Smothers we had last year and the way Purdy was playing last year. Now, of course, if you believe Matt Rule, and I do, that Purdy's really taken steps forward, but still, what we put on the field last year, dude, they just couldn't pass the ball. Trey Palmer had like 37 yards. Trey Palmer! So I think our offense is going to be better naturally. It's just Minnesota doesn't historically turn the ball over. We're going to have to beat them. They're not going to beat themselves. And for Matt Rule's first game in the Big Ten, knowing that his rebuilds take minimum 1 year to get off the ground, I'm struggling here to find a way to say that the Huskers are going to win this game, even though I think it's very possible.
You could definitely oversimplify it and just say, based off what we just said, their best player from last year is gone, and the most important position where we should have a big upgrade. So if you just compare kind of those two things alone and how close the game was, like, yeah, for sure, Nebraska should win. Then you start going into the systems, and we added some guys. Obviously, they added some guys, and if you're talking about this from the Minnesota standpoint, you could play the exact same mental gymnastics from the opposite side and say how Minnesota wins. So I'm honestly shocked that it's a 7-point spread. I'll be surprised if Minnesota covers that. I'm with you, though. I'm not going to sit here, and I'm way more confident that Nebraska will beat Colorado than Minnesota. I don't know that I'd even predict Nebraska win. I would probably lean that way, but I think it's real close if Nebraska wins. But I just don't know about what is it, 7.5? Is it dropped at all? I don't know. Last I looked, it was like a 7.5 point spread. I'll feel a lot better trying to predict and guess these games as the season rolls on, and get a feel for like how well players are playing, but what the system looks like and how it's going to go with matchups across the board. But again, I I feel like if we had Casey Thompson in that game last year, for sure Nebraska probably still loses because that's what they do. But it seems a lot closer. Maybe you can talk yourself into they eke out a win. But if you really believe that Sims is a big step up, and you look at some of the guys, especially like you talked about or alluded to on the defensive end, being upgrades, and then they lose their best guy. That Tyler kid, he's for sure not a slouch, but who knows what he's going to look like in the Big Ten as opposed to playing for Western Michigan and, his first year in. So we'll see what happens, but I think it'll be a close game. I think, like you said, it'll be a run heavy on both sides. Both teams the primary target is going to be owning time of possession, and then it could come down to just who has the ball last.
For the sake of not being fence sitters, let's go ahead and give a quick score prediction. I'll go 23-17 Minnesota, and I hate to say it.
I'm going to say field goal heavy, rather lower scoring game. I'm going to say Minnesota 23, Nebraska 26 on a late field goal. Late.
Well, you are the degenerate gambler of the two of us, so you're probably going to be closer than me, and I hope you're right.
I hope I'm right, but I would definitely not put any money on it.
Thanks for hanging out. We'll have a post-game video out as soon as we can right after the game. Be on the lookout for that. Until next time, though, go Big Red.